What's up? My name is Eric Butler. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back, and from the New York Post, Goosebumps author R.L. Stine says publisher made woke edits behind his back. So if you are of a certain age, I'm sure you remember this. I don't know if they're still doing them. And I grew up on these things. Can't say I read a bunch of them cover to cover, but I remember the illustrations being kind of cool. Anyhow, they say kids horror author R.L. Stine has denied sanitizing his classic Goosebumps books to appease the woke, accusing his publisher of altering his work behind his back. So that's already pretty dark. We got a little blame game. Somebody has blamed him for changing the books, and he's blaming the publisher, and it probably was the publisher. I don't see why a nearly 80-year-old man would go back and change the words in a book he wrote 20 or 30 years ago to appease a bunch of college kids, right? I mean, are the young kids the ones offended at this? I highly doubt it. And it's also a little bit strange that they want to sanitize this for kids, but those very same kids are also getting books with weirdo sexual fetishes. And if you don't let that happen, then you're a book burning extremist, right-wing prude, or whatever it is that they want to say. The 79-year-old horror author spoke up after the Times of London claimed that he had censored over a dozen books to avoid mentions of race or calling characters fat or crazy. So they're going for just run-of-the-mill things. These aren't really hot-button topics, right? Just saying fat or crazy. That's how far they've gotten. Like, you just can't say those words. It's absolute insanity. You can't even mention race. Why? Right? I mean, these are the same people that mention race at every single opportunity, right? The political establishment weirdos, they're the ones constantly talking about race, using it as a political wedge. But in this book, they don't want that to happen. But I don't know. They're not the ones who did it. Perhaps Stine is saying it's the publisher, so maybe he's trying to appease somebody. Who knows what's really going on here? Instead, the changes were made behind his back, Stine said in a response to an angry reader who accused him of being shameful for supporting censorship. And there he is, back in the day. That must have been the 80s or 90s or something. The stories aren't true. I've never changed a word in Goosebumps, he again said of the second biggest selling book series after Harry Potter. Well, I didn't know they were that popular. And I've never read a Harry Potter book, for whatever that's worth. Any changes were never shown to me. The changes sparked outrage, coming on the heels of woke edits to Roald Dahl's classic kids book, as well as planned changes to Ian Fleming's James Bond books. Unlike those, however, the UK Times initially accused Stine of making the changes. And here we have this tweet from Lindsay, the Cynical Geek. Man, I looked up to R.L. Stine as an awesome writer that brought much joy to my childhood and teen years. The fact that he supports censorship and the altercation of his work of art is quite disturbing. How shameful. So yeah, people don't want to see the people don't want history to be well. There's a handful of people that do want history to be rewritten, but those people are absolute insanity. They're the ones out there spray painting Christopher Columbus statues and pulling down entire monuments and replacing them with George Floyd and murals of Greta Thunberg. Fox News contributor Guy Benson said that changing Stine's work without his approval was fittingly especially creepy. Altering published works to conform to ever-shifting standards is more Orwellian than just banning them. And this ever-shifting standards, right, I'm constantly talking about that. It's the goalpost moving, right? It's real whack-a-mole out there. You got to jump through these hoops. We just saw another story from Vice where they're claiming that women are smoking more weed than men. Young women are smoking more weed than young men because they have more problems to deal with. But in that same breath, or I shouldn't say in the same breath, but that's the same group of people who are going to basically tell us that a woman doesn't even really exist. A man is a woman if he so chooses, right? So we don't know what a woman is, but also it's Women's History Month, and also women are dealing with more problems than men. That's why they're smoking more weed. None of it makes sense, but that's the point, right? It's the chaos, it's the hypocrisy, it's the control. They're just letting you know that you are going to jump through these hoops. When we say jump, you say how high, no matter what it is. So we're at the point where they're changing the words in a 90s kids book to appease somebody on Twitter, apparently. The UK Times said it found more than 100 edits in ebook versions of the series of 62 books. It noted how one character who acts real cool, like the rappers on MTV videos, now just acts real cool. Okay, I guess, I mean, I mean, it's weird. It is creepy to edit stuff, but that doesn't really make any sense. I guess MTV is an awful outlet too, so I guess I'm not really mad at that particular edit. However, the principle, the overarching principle, is incredibly dystopian. And it is described as having brown skin rather than being African American. Mentions of slaves were also removed, as well as blackface worn by characters dressed as a dark and stormy night for Halloween. Characters were no longer roly-poly and plump. Ones were described as now cheerful. Ones were described as now cheerful. Characters Stine called overweight are now merely huge. And one with at least 6 chins is now at least 6 feet 6. Weird. All so weird. And maybe a line about schoolgirls having crushes on their headmaster was cut, and a boy who wolf whistled now merely whistled loudly. The UK Times noted something dismissed as girl stuff is now just not interesting. Yeah, so they're really taking a liberty here. Like, they're going so far off the deep end to control every tiny little minuscule detail of a kid's book from 1991 or something. Numerous mentions of crazy were cut, replaced with terms such as silly, wild, scary, lost her mind, and stressed. The term a real nut is now a real wild one, and nutcase is weirdo. Scholastic confirmed to the Post on Wednesday that it had made changes to the series that has brought millions of kids to reading through humor with just the right amount of scary. Scholastic takes its responsibility seriously to continue bringing the classic adolescent brand to each new generation. Scholastic reviewed the text to keep the language current and avoid imagery that could negatively impact a young person's view of themselves. And there you have it, right? We're going to protect you from yourself, because all the kids that grew up on this, maybe they're not doing well either. I don't know if it's the millennials. I don't know if it's Gen Z. I don't think it's boomers. I don't know what's going on, who's convincing these people to make these edits. And maybe if you want to go real tinfoil hat here, maybe R.L. Stine likes this. Maybe this is going to give his book, when things like this happen, is it the Streisand effect they call it? I don't know. When things like this happen, they immediately go #1 on Amazon. So maybe he's enjoying this. Maybe it's all part of the plan and the weird, crazy conspiracy, nothing is off the table world, but probably not. It's probably just a bunch of weird, woke, establishment shill hacks trying to appease a blue check Twitter person for some strange reason. And whether he likes it or not, he will probably benefit from this, because now it's in the news, now it's trending, and if I had to guess, I'd probably say it's charting on Amazon when it wasn't a month ago. So, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe.